And it looked like Sophie Cunningham opens up about Kelsey Plum speaking on Caitlin Clark managing her all-star team.
Sophie Cunningham just dropped some serious truth bombs about Kelsey Plum and the whole Caitlin Clark mess. And honestly, what she said about the all-star drama has everyone talking. The Missouri native isn't holding back on her podcast, and she's calling out exactly what we've all been thinking about this league's problem with Clark. What do you think about Sophie finally speaking up about the Kelsey Plum situation?
Kelsey Plum with the chirp?
Why?
I don't know, dude.
Why?
Not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that.
I hate that because, like, this is what we've always wanted as a league. So, like, who cares who gets the credit? And if you're smart, you're making money off of them.
Yeah.
Like, you are literally making money from...
So Sophie Cunningham has officially entered the chat, and she's not playing games anymore. This woman launched her podcast, Show Me Something, and she's already stirring up more honest conversation than we've seen from most WNBA players combined. Her latest episode, Purifier. For those who don't know, Sophie's from Missouri, which explains a lot about her no-nonsense attitude. She's not here to play nice or dance around the obvious elephant in the room. And that elephant has a name. The league's weird obsession with pretending Caitlin Clark isn't the reason everyone's watching.
Sophie Cunningham is from Missouri. Now, if you guys didn't know, Sophie Cunningham has a new podcast, and I'm telling you right now, she's already getting big-time buzz around the WNBA. In one of the latest episodes, she spoke about none other than the Kelsey Plum situation involving Caitlin Clark at this year's All-Star Game.
The clip that's got everyone buzzing shows Sophie breaking down what really happened during that All-Star Game situation with Kelsey Plum. And honestly, it's about time someone with actual credibility started talking. Sophie straight up said that Kelsey wanted to take credit for the whole shirt thing while basically throwing Caitlin under the bus. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Sophie isn't just throwing random accusations around. She was there. She saw how things went down. And when she says 0 members of Team Clark were present for whatever Kelsey was talking about, that tells you everything you need to know about the manufactured drama.
Literally, like, pisses me off when people are like, she's not the face of the league.
Who would be?
What?
Sabrina? No.
No, there's really good, well-known people in our league. I'm not discrediting them. Like, we have a lot of badasses in our league.
Yeah.
Like, hell yeah to that. I'm all for that. But when people try to argue that she's not the face of our league,
Yeah.
or if our league would be where we're at without her, you're dumb as
Yeah.
The timing of Sophie's podcast launch couldn't be more perfect. The WNBA is having its biggest year ever, thanks to you-know-who. And instead of capitalizing on it properly, we're getting all this behind-the-scenes pettiness. Sophie saw an opportunity to cut through the noise and actually talk about what's really happening. What's really telling is how quickly her podcast gained traction. 250,000 views on the first episode isn't just impressive for WNBA content. It's impressive, period. That tells you there's a huge appetite for honest takes on what's happening in this league. People are tired of the corporate speak and political correctness that usually comes with player interviews.
One of your teammates, arguably one of the biggest stars the WNBA's ever
Who's that?
had. Her name rhymes with Schmaitland.
Hurtland?
Yeah. What has that been like, seeing her not only kind of transform a league, but also just be like,
No,
is that fair to say? Okay.
not even just the league, but like
The
women's
sport.
basketball as a whole around the
Yeah.
world. No, I think it's awesome. I think it's so funny because she's like 22, 23 years old and the whole world is watching her.
Yeah.
Like it is a cult following. I'm not kidding.
No, it's wild.
Like, it
the
is
airport today,
insane.
it was like 22 everywhere.
Anywhere you go, like it is a home game wherever we play. Like
No way.
security with her 24/7. Like people are outraged.
The whole thing is so ridiculous when you really think about it. Here's Kelsey Plum trying to make herself look like some kind of leader or voice of reason, when really, she's just part of the same tired narrative that's been plaguing this league since day one. We don't need Caitlin Clark crowd that keeps pretending like they're not making bank off her popularity. And let's talk about that All-Star Game for a second. The whole event was basically a Caitlin Clark showcase, whether the league wanted to admit it or not. The fans voted her in as a starter in her rookie year, which should tell you everything about her impact. But instead of embracing that energy, you had players like Kelsey trying to create some weird power struggle.
That was a very powerful moment. We didn't, at least as players, we didn't know that was going to happen. So I think it was kind of like a genuine surprise. But the T-shirt, just United Front, was determined this morning that we had a meeting for. And, not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that. But no, we were just we had a very
That really needed to be mentioned.
I'm trying to make a situation light, okay? But yeah, no, I think it was just all of us getting on the same page for the game. We wanted to do something that was just united and collective, and I thought that it was a very powerful moment and got the point across. And sometimes you don't.
Sophie hit the nail on the head when she said, if you're smart, you're making money off of Caitlin's viewership. That's not shade. That's just facts. The WNBA has been struggling for visibility for decades, and suddenly they have this massive star bringing in viewers. And instead of embracing it, half the league wants to act like she's a problem. The social media reaction to Sophie's comments has been telling, too. Fans are finally hearing someone in the league acknowledge what they've been seeing all along. The comment sections are full of people saying, finally, someone with sense. This is what we've been waiting for. That's not coincidence. That's validation. Meanwhile, you have other players staying suspiciously quiet about Sophie's comments, which is interesting, because usually when someone says something controversial in the WNBA, you get a whole bunch of responses and clarifications. The silence speaks volumes about how accurate Sophie's observations really are. The Missouri connection here is actually pretty interesting, too. Sophie's representing her home state well by just telling the truth, without all the political correctness that usually comes with these situations. She's not worried about hurting feelings or maintaining some fake image of league unity. She's calling it like she sees it, and what she sees is a league that's shooting itself in the foot. Sophie pointed out that this is what they've always wanted as a league: massive attention, viewership, and relevance. But instead of capitalizing on it, too many players are caught up in their feelings about who gets the credit. The business side of this is what makes the whole situation even more frustrating. The WNBA has been operating at a loss for most of its existence. Now they finally have someone who can draw crowds and generate revenue, and instead of building around that success, you have players creating unnecessary drama. Look at the attendance numbers from games Caitlin plays in versus games she doesn't. The difference is staggering. You'd think that would be enough to convince everyone that supporting her success is good for everyone. But apparently, ego is more important than economic reality for some people. The Kelsey Plum situation is particularly frustrating because she's actually a talented player, but she's let her ego get in the way of common sense. Instead of recognizing that rising tides lift all boats, she's out here trying to diminish Caitlin's impact, and it's backwards thinking that hurts everyone. What's even more ridiculous is how the Indiana Fever management has handled some of this. You'd think having the biggest star in the league would make management decisions easier, but somehow they've managed to create unnecessary complications. The whole coaching situation, the roster construction, the way they've handled media obligations. It's been a masterclass in how not to manage a superstar. Sophie's podcast is already getting more views than most WNBA content, which should tell you something about what happens when players actually speak authentically instead of giving boring, corporate-approved interviews. 250,000 views on the first episode. That's serious numbers for WNBA content. The consistency of her content drops is impressive, too. They're putting out episodes regularly, which shows they understand how to build an audience. Unlike some other players who might drop content randomly and wonder why nobody's watching, the media coverage of Sophie's comments has been interesting to watch, too. Some outlets are trying to downplay what she said, while others are highlighting it as a major story. The divide in coverage pretty much mirrors the divide in the league itself. Some people get it, others are still in denial. Now, Sophie mentioned that not all Missouri players are handling this situation well. She called out Nafisa Collier for talking greasy about the Caitlin situation, and honestly, that's fair criticism. Collier has been part of the problem, making snide comments and perpetuating the negative narrative around Clark. The fact that Sophie is willing to call out players from her own state shows she's not playing favorites. She's calling balls and strikes based on what she's actually seeing, not based on personal relationships or politics. The veteran players in this league really need to take a hard look at how they're handling this situation. Instead of mentoring and supporting someone who's bringing unprecedented attention to their sport, too many of them are acting like jealous teenagers. It's embarrassing for everyone involved. The growth Sophie mentioned about her own team is interesting in contrast to how other players handle pressure. When her team faces adversity, they come together and trust each other. Meanwhile, you have players like Kelsey Plum creating unnecessary drama and division over someone who's bringing success to the entire league. Sophie talked about how her team has learned to handle runs from opposing teams without falling apart. That's exactly the mindset the league needs regarding Caitlin Clark. Instead of seeing her success as a threat, they should see it as an opportunity to elevate everyone. The consistency theme keeps coming up. which is ironic because the one thing that's been consistent in the WNBA is the weird treatment of Caitlin Clark. From her rookie season through now in her second year, there's been this strange resistance to acknowledging what she brings to the table. It's not like Caitlin came into the league demanding special treatment. She just played basketball at an elite level and brought fans with her. The natural response should have been excitement and gratitude. Instead, we got months of manufactured controversy and weird gatekeeping. The fan reaction to all this has been pretty clear, too. People are getting tired of the drama and just want to watch good basketball. When players like Sophie speak honestly about the situation, fans respond positively. When players create unnecessary controversy, fans tune out. To Sophie's point about trusting the process and stacking days is something more players should focus on. Instead of worrying about who's getting attention or credit, focus on improving your own game and building something sustainable. The depth Sophie mentioned on her team is something the league could learn from. When one player isn't having their best day, someone else steps up. That's how team sports work. But instead, we have this bizarre situation where some players act like Caitlin's success somehow takes away from their own opportunities. The veteran leadership Sophie talked about is exactly what's been missing from the broader league conversation. Real veterans would welcome someone who brings new fans and energy. They'd understand that more attention means more money, better facilities, and more opportunities for everyone to... Sophie's comments about players not being afraid to make big plays is telling. Fear seems to be driving a lot of negative reactions to Caitlin. Fear that she's changing the hierarchy. Fear that she's getting too much attention. Fear that the old way of doing things isn't working anymore. The unselfish play Sophie described is what makes teams successful. It's also what makes leagues successful. When everyone's trying to get theirs instead of building something bigger, you end up with the kind of drama we've been seeing. The development Sophie mentioned regarding young players gaining confidence is exactly what should be happening league-wide. Caitlin's presence should be inspiring other players to elevate their games, not making them resentful. The comment about being difficult to scout when everyone can contribute is spot on. The WNBA becomes much harder to ignore when you have multiple stars instead of just trying to tear down the biggest one. Sophie's analysis of opposing players shows the kind of basketball IQ that will be valuable in these broader league discussions. She can recognize talent and growth in opponents while still competing against them. That's a mentality that's been missing from too many Caitlin Clark conversations. The comparison to development curves of other players shows Sophie understands that success takes time and support. Caitlin didn't need as much time to make an impact, but that doesn't mean she doesn't deserve the same support and respect. The versatility Sophie mentioned regarding her teammates is something that should be celebrated league-wide. Players who can adapt and contribute in different ways make the game better. Caitlin has shown that same versatility, but instead of being celebrated, it's often downplayed. The trust factor Sophie emphasized is crucial. Teams need to trust each other, and leagues need to trust their stars. The lack of trust shown toward Caitlin has been one of the most disappointing aspects of this whole situation. The rock-solid leadership Sophie described is what the league needs more of. Players who can see the bigger picture and help everyone succeed, rather than getting caught up in petty jealousy or manufactured drama. Sophie's honesty about feeling nervous during close games shows the authentic emotion that makes sports compelling. That same authenticity is what's been missing from too many discussions about league dynamics and star players. The execution and communication issues Sophie mentioned are perfect metaphors for the league's broader problems. When you don't communicate effectively or execute your plan, you end up with unnecessary drama and missed opportunities. Sophie Cunningham is exactly what this league needs more of, players willing to speak truth instead of playing politics. Her podcast is already making waves because honesty resonates with fans. What do you think about Sophie's take on this whole situation? Drop your thoughts below. Smash that like button and subscribe for more real talk about what's actually happening in the WNBA.